Hello, puppies and kittens. Welcome to another episode of Blasphemer's Bible. We are on Genesis 49 now because there were a number of people that had. No, I've got extensive notes for the end of this thing, so let's bring it on. Lawrence,
Oh,
Tomer, Isaac, Lilith. Oh, Lilandra's finally joined us.
Although I think
yeah.
there was an issue with Lilith's camera, so I don't know if she's like rejoining. Oh yeah, there she is. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
See, I kind of like that glitchy effect. It should have
Oh
just,
yeah, I don't know what the deal is with this. It's not right. So I'm gonna see what I can do to get the camera back online, and then
Yeah, see, the background is supposed to be behind you. It doesn't work if you're behind the background.
All right. So while she works on that, yeah, I know that for chapter 49, I think Tomer has like a ton of commentary on this part, right?
Yeah, I have 5 pages.
Yeah. So I am gonna have a decent amount of stuff on chapter 50. So I guess we're gonna split it up that way, right? Yeah. So I
Yes.
have all this stuff there, but I have been greatly enjoying this entire thing, guys. Aaron, thank you so much for including me in this whole thing.
Yeah, I couldn't do it without you. I mean, I had to have you involved if it was going to happen at all. That was my thinking.
I appreciate that, but I still have a lot of learning to do, as we all do. So, 'cause there's never stop learning. So, what I really liked was actually getting into the Joseph story a lot this entire thing, because the recent scholarship about it has been very interesting.
Hold on.
Okay.
Oh god, the
apparently
ASMR.
Dealing with the
Ah.
yes ideal camera.
Yeah, there's a
Okay.
mute
So
button,
put yourself
Lilith.
on mute first. No, we heard all that.
Well, I'm gonna have to put you back. In this whole show,
Oh.
stroking my snake here.
But yeah, I just wanted to say thanks. And we can
No,
hop
not
into it.
not this euphemism.
Not this show.
Yeah, not this show.
So have we
Uh,
decided on
we're off
who
to a
is
great
going
start.
to read?
There we go. Nice. I don't mind reading.
I like when you read.
My
You got a
my
very
advice
soothing
is
voice.
that you read. My advice is that you read 3 brothers each.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. There we go. Let's start. Jacob
Well,
called
who's
for
reading
his
today?
sons.
Isaac is.
Yeah, I'm going to start again.
Okay.
Jacob called for his sons and said, "Gather, and I will tell you what will happen to you at the end of days. Gather and listen, sons of Jacob, and listen to Israel, your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my strength, and the first of my might." It's got here brackets, but I'm guessing that's not direct translation. It says you should have been superior in rank and superior in power. But I think literally just says superior in rank and superior in power.
Yeah.
You have the restlessness of water. You shall not have superiority, for you ascended upon your father's couch. Then you profaned him who ascended upon my bed. Simon and Levi are brothers. Stolen instruments are their weapons. Let my soul not enter their council, my honor. You shall not join their assembly. For in their wrath they killed a man, and with their will they hamstrung a bull. Cursed be their wrath, for it is mighty, and their anger, because it is harsh. I will separate them throughout Jacob, and I will scatter them throughout Israel. That's
Okay.
3 sons.
So yeah. So first about in the days to come. So the blessings, quote unquote, of Jacob are not really blessings, because as you see here, he does not really bless Reuben, Simeon, and Levi. But they are more of a prophetic will. This type of blessings, this type of beginning for blessings, quote unquote, are also found in the last words of Moses, that Deuteronomy 31:29, and the blessing of Balaam, Numbers 24:14. Some commentators wrote that this refers to the days of the Messiah. because it's the end of the days.
Instead of because what I have, of course, is the days to come. But it's interesting. This definitely harkens back to earlier parts of the story. You have Reuben sleeping with one of his father's concubines. You have Simeon and Levi committing genocide to avenge their sister. And apparently animal cruelty as well, because and it's interesting. You can see in the story of Joseph, there's the back and forth we mentioned last time, where was Judah going to be the good guy? Was Reuben going to be the good guy? Or not last time, or at the beginning of the story when he was thrown into the cistern. And you can see that in this narrative, at least, Judah's the good guy. So, I mean, that's obviously in the next verse, but basically, again, the hierarchy of those days, the eldest son becomes head of the family, whatever, but all of the first three sons are disqualified because of their behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like in this section, I'm sure that Tomer and Isaac can expand on this. There are a lot of phrases that don't really make sense to us. Now, someone like Nahum Sarna, who I'm not really a fan of, has proposed that this means that it's much older. These are much more like archaic phrases, and I'm not so sure about that. Like he suggests like before like 1000 CE and 1000 BCE, and I don't really buy that entirely. I don't buy that at all. But it might be a reference to some earlier tradition that probably not that early, but definitely when we get definitely by the time, I think, as we will see, like the way this poem goes, is that it might be like a compilation of different texts. So it might have been like, added on over time, or or it could be that it was archaized, because a lot of biblical texts were archaized, meaning that they were written later, but they were written as if they were written, long ago. Like I think I used the example on the show, right? Where if I tried to make something today sound like Shakespearean, I'd be like, and he shall yeeteth himself out the window. I think
you did.
I did,
yeah. You did.
So
and we brought up the example of the Book of Mormon, which pulled the same shit with and it came to pass, behold, and forsooth. And
stuff like
and
that.
I think
like that.
Yeah, and I think that there are also midrashic explanations. I think the Book of Jasher, it's Sefer Yashar, the midrashic work, is also an example of this, and I think the Zohar as well, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I do want to read the Zohar because it's very critical for like the study of like the origins of Kabbalah, right? So I do want to read that one eventually, but I know it's really long.
Yes.
Fair enough. I honestly, I'm a cheat these days. I tend to use audiobooks so I can multitask and go through hours and hours. That was the only way I got through any of Calvin's stuff. John Calvin, Institutes of the Christian Religion is on LibriVox. But I had to do research, so.
It's also interesting that I was going to say this section begins with, "Oh, I will tell you about the end of days," but then he just doesn't.
No. Well, I mean, it allows plenty of options for interpretation.
Yeah, so the classical Jewish interpretation is that he wanted to, but then the divine what's it called? The words
Shekhinah, the divine being,
the
divine
Holy
spirit.
Spirit, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that's it. Left him, and so he had to change the subject.
Which gets wild in many apocryphal texts. That the Shekinah is crazy. That's what you said, right? Shekinah, or at least how it would be transliterated. There are texts where it's in Eden, right? But then it gets pulled out of Eden, and everyone sees it going up back to heaven because it doesn't want to be here on Earth anymore. And it's you can't really look straight at it because it'll like melt your eyes or some shit. And it gets kind of crazy in
That's
apocryphal
interesting.
texts.
Yeah, there is the idea like the Shekhinah dwells in like the temple and other things like that. Yeah. Also,
Is
it's
the
traditionally
Shekinah
regarded as like a feminine
Wait,
aspect of God as well.
Lilana
Is-
want to say something, but
is the Shekinah God?
It's
it's the
supposed to be
divine
God's spirit.
Is it God
Yeah.
though? Is it Steph?
Arguably, like
It's the Holy
It's
Spirit.
not like in Christianity where like God is three persons but one being or whatever it is. It's like the Shekhinah is just God's revelation or
the
God's
manifestation
spirit
of
as
God
it
in the world.
manifests on the earth,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. Sort of the Holy
Yeah.
Spirit, but without quite as much Trinitarian baloney with the division of the persons in a completely incoherent manner. That
I was always
is-
confused as to how the Spirit of God how an angel can be the Spirit of God, or the Spirit of God can be an angel, different angels at different times. But then, so today the Spirit of God is Gabriel, but it's God, but it's not God.
I think that depends whether you're dealing with a Christian or a Jewish concept of angels, because as we've
Yeah.
discussed before, Christian angels are personalities and persons who have specific roles and hierarchies and principalities and powers and cherubim, seraphim, the orders and magnitudes. Whereas in at least some of the Jewish concepts of angels have been more that they're manifestations of God, like God's hand as it reaches into the world, because of course God is more, and
You said
know.
an avatar of God?
kind of close to that.
Yeah,
think a
well,
little
I was
less
actually
than
going
that,
with
yeah.
a Muslim interpretation. I mean, the person in the Quran, the person who impregnated Mary, and they'll say that it wasn't impregnated, but the story is that she's hiding in a cave, and the Spirit of God appears as in the form of an extremely handsome man who then walks into who goes into the cave with Mary to tell her that she's now going to conceive a child. Why did he have to be an extremely handsome man to do this?
Kind of suspect.
And
I wonder
how
if
is
that's
it? How is it?
yeah.
It's the Spirit of God, but it's not God.
Yeah.
I mean, because
I
it
was
doesn't
going to
say
ask
that
if
it's.
she was impregnated by a golden shower, but I think a different mythology already did that.
Like Zeus would do that, yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, better than being.
It's interesting
jumped
how
by a
Gabriel comes
swan.
up a lot in Christianity and Islam when like he's supposed to be like the strength of God. He's normally, at least in the Bible, when he does come up,
Mhm.
or when
Yeah.
Isn't
tradition
Michael
is that
mentioned
was
more
Gabriel, it's
often?
normally like like the one who destroyed Sodom or whatever.
Speaking of Jewish concepts, we mentioned the Yetzer Hara, or you mentioned the Yetzer Hara, which is sort of the wayward element in people, which you need to have a bit of, I guess, to make a
The evil
interesting person.
inclination.
The evil
Yeah.
inclination, the wayward inclination. Does God
Yeah.
have a Yetzer Hara?
I guess you could say Satan is his Yetzer Hara, making him think of maybe like if you look at the book of Job, like
Yeah.
he's like, well, what if you do this, or but I don't really think that is a way of thinking. Like God doesn't have bad thoughts, but I guess it gets complicated when you actually look at the text and be like, well, over here he seemed to have changed his mind, so what does that mean?
Yeah. He changes his mind quite often, and very quickly as well. Once we get to the Deuteronomistic histories, once we get through like the prophets, we are going to see how God is portrayed in those texts far differently than he's portrayed in many others. And like one of the most, so like there's this weird thing that I never fully grasped the moral nature of it, but the Israelites sin, and like they don't follow God the way he should, so he sends the Babylonians to like punish them. But then he punishes the Babylonians for punishing the Jews.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like what? Like they're doing exactly the thing that you said that they should do. Why are you mad at them? Like it doesn't make much sense to me.
I think there is an idea of like you know, like on the higher realms, the angel of Babylon kind of volunteers. Like he didn't have to be the one, like it didn't have to be them specifically. God needed an instrument to punish them, but they didn't have to choose to be that instrument by being evil or whatever.
Oh,
I
okay.
think that's
So
kind of the idea.
it's still so weird though, right? Because he's like, I'm gonna send someone to take care of you, and then it turned out to be the Babylonians. But then yeah,
It's a bit like Calvinism. You're destined to do a thing, and then you're punished for doing the thing that you were destined to do, even though it wasn't your idea.
right.
And
Yeah, I
it's
think
perfectly
the-
moral and good, and don't you dare think otherwise.
I think like because of like rabbinical Judaism kind of believes that, you know, monotheism, strict monotheism and stuff is like that's the original tradition. So they have like apologetics for why the texts are written in the way they are, and generally it's, you know, it's written in the language of men and
The Torah spoke in human tongue.
anthropomorphizing. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Anthropomorphized?
as if
And-
we can't understand anything else. Like if it's written in a language,
Like the finger of God means this, the hand of God means that, the God's anger, like all of these things, he's not a person with these actual emotions and physical appendages, but it's a way of saying it, and this is what it really means, and they kind of
So I
develop
guess
that
he doesn't
into-
really have a throne, as seats are made for asses.
Yes, the throne is, yeah, that I'm sure I've read like
It's
what
in
the
Isaiah.
throne is.
Isaiah 6,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's where it
it-
physically
it-
describes it. You know, it's made
Yeah.
of sapphire and whatever. But what does that actually mean? Like, you probably have to look in like Kabbalah or Hasidic philosophy and stuff to see like how
That's a wonderful thing.
what does it really
Yeah.
mean?
yeah. What's so once we get to the arc stuff, I'm gonna have
Oh.
a lot about the throne of God, because with Thomas Romer, I am of the opinion that, and I recognize this is not it's not popular within mainstream scholarship, but I think Romer makes a very good case that the Ark of the Covenant was a statue of Yahweh, and
yeah.
yeah, he makes a
I've
really
read
good case for that.
I've read the same argument by Albin Nun.
Yeah, so once we get there, I think it'll be really interesting to talk about.
Okay. So let's talk about the blessing of Reuben. So I have a quote from Moshe Weinfeld. He writes, even though it was the first of the tribes, Reuben's tribe did not reach a name-worthy position. It resided at the border of Moab and was prone to invading dangers of desert dwellers, whom it fought frequently. For example, 1 Chronicles 5, verses 10, 9, 10, and 18. As such, it did not integrate fully into the tribal union, Judges 5:16, and kept the patriarchal chieftain position until a later period, 1 Chronicles 5:6. The blessings of Moses, Deuteronomy 33:6, describes the Reuben tribe as almost extinct.
Interesting.
Now, verse 5, their swords are weapons of violence. The KJV translates instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. And the word that is translated to swords, or the word that is translated to swords is michrotehem, which isn't really swords in Hebrew. Not the usual name for sword. It's cherev usually. And it is a hepaklegomena. Some commentators, like Rashi and Gersonides, wrote that the word means weapons, comparing it to the Greek word for sword, machaira, I think. However, other commentators, like Ibn Ezra and David Kimchi, interpret the word to mean in the land of their origins, like the KJV says, as seen in Ezekiel 16:3, your ancestry, mechorotaich, and birth. And it is also translated as such by Targum Onkelos, in the land of the residents they did mighty deeds.
Is there any interpretation that says it means stolen? Like
Stolen.
like their weapons were stolen.
Maybe I don't think so. What you know what word for stolen? Hamas.
That's why I'm confused. So Clay Hamas means weapons, or
weapons of violence. Maybe Hamas means violence or wrong, according to BDB dictionary.
So we're talking about verse 5 there.
Yes.
Yeah. So Alter translates this: Simeon and Levi, the brothers, weapons of outrage, their trade.
Yeah, because like the translation, the religious Jewish translation that I read online says stolen instruments are their weapons.
Oh,
Um,
well, there might be a
then-
reason for that. So it looks like it's conjecturally linked linked to the root that means to sell,
Ah,
the one for their trade,
oh,
Hmm.
maybe.
because it has
Yeah, it's
so I don't exactly know how to read this, but meker or something like that, because it's written with just the consonants, right?
yeah.
Yeah, so the word that's used for their trade, while the meaning is uncertain, it is linked to sell.
Yeah.
But he uses their trade.
Right,
mhm.
because
Right,
the
of
sort of
accumul-
allegorical translation I have here also says their murderous use of weapons has been stolen from Esau.
JPS
In
translates.
brackets.
JPS translates their weapons are tools of lawlessness.
Yeah, that's interesting. Guess you can read
so-
whatever you want into this text.
Oh, you've noticed that. So I got a
Um,
couple of comments to read. Frederick Agerbo says, I have an idea. After, as the character of God is almost changing in every book. So what about making the God of videos after each book, summarizing the character of God in that book? I don't know that I'm up to that, but it's an idea. Trevor and Wright says, what would you say in your own words is the best explanation for hell described in the Bible and heaven? I don't.
So-
Obviously, you're talking about the New Testament there, because there's not much description of hell in the Old.
No,
well, I
no,
think
there's
yeah.
the Old Testament there is Sheol, which is sometimes translated to hell.
yeah,
but,
which is
you know,
or
improper.
Hades, like the underworld, or
Yeah,
literally the grave.
it's translated
Mhm.
in the Septuagint as Hades, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
And then Hades gets corrupted to hell, which then becomes
well, it's not.
related
It's
to
more
the
than just
English
that.
idea.
It's
Yeah.
more than just that, because we will also run into the concept of Gehenna, which the Valley of Ben
Yeah.
Hinnom, which was a real place.
Guy Ben Hinnom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the way it's portrayed in the Bible is this is where like evil kings would send their kids to pass through the fire, right? So a lot of that imagery was taken up for hell as well.
Understandably so. I can
Yeah.
see where they're getting it from.
And I just think
just
it's
saying,
important
like-
for people to realize that hell, the Jewish concept of hell, was virtually indistinguishable from the Mesopotamian or Greek concepts of the land of the dead. There was one place everybody went when you died, and you went to be dead. You didn't go to be tortured. You went to be dead.
Yeah, at least until the
Waiting.
Great Resurrection.
And Christian universalists who do not believe in hell will often cite that as a reason that, if people were going to be burned for all eternity for doing the wrong thing or believing the wrong thing, surely God should have mentioned it somewhere in the first 3/4 of the book.
Yeah.
Maybe he should have brought that up to Adam. Just an idea. Maybe Abraham or Moses or any of those characters would have found that an important piece of information to make a note of. Just maybe.
Just maybe. Yep, that would have been good if you. It's kind of like in that how I learned to stop worrying and love the bomb. When what good is the doomsday device if the purpose of the doomsday device is we all know that if we launch a nuclear weapon, all the nuclear weapons will go off. Well, that doesn't really work unless you tell somebody that their thing exists.
True.
Yeah.
That's how. That's how deterrents work.
Mormon skeptic says, as an aphrodisiac, I can't watch. No, wait, let me read that.
Aphrodisiac?
Or fitophobic.
word.
Or fitophobiac.
Scared of
Yeah.
snake.
Fitophobiac.
Yeah,
Yeah.
afraid of snake.
I
okay,
can't watch,
snake
but
is
as a
gone.
as a deconstructing Mormon, I can't stop listening. Thank you very much for that. And then Minute Rice offers $6.66. Says, "Love those horns, Aaron. Really brings out that spirit of blasphemy. Love this show. I learn a lot every time. You've got a great panel." I'll agree with that for sure. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah. None of us mentioned the horns because we're just used to it at this point.
I like gave a thumbs up enthusiastically, but I didn't want to interrupt what was going on. I was like, yes,
Yeah, I'm
the
joking.
horns. No, I know we're all possessed by Satan, right? Isn't that the thing? Or, I don't
I've been
know.
hearing that. I've been hearing that, since I was a child. Not even kidding. I was
I
accused of being
know.
a devil worshiper since I was a teenager. Since I turned into a teenager.
No, my ex-husband accused me of being possessed. Hence why
Hmm.
he's my ex-husband, well, among other reasons.
Sounds like good reasoning.
Yeah.
All right, who's reading?
I haven't finished.
Okay.
So verse 6, let me not enter their counsel. The KJV translates, come not thou into their secret. And the word that is translated to counsel or secret is sodam. Most early translations refer to it as counsel. From the parallel for assembly, kehalam, that is also seen in Psalms 89, verse 6 to 8.
Makes it sound like don't make me complicit in their crimes, which, given,
Yeah.
what they've done thus far, is a perfectly reasonable request.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, hamstrung oxen as they pleased. KJV translates, in their self-will they dug down a wall. The Aramaic translations understood the oxen, shor, to mean wall, shur, as seen in verse 22 and 2 Samuel 22:30. And so the hamstrung here means to demolish, similar to Zephaniah 2:4. The Vulgate also renders it as well, but the Septuagint renders it as ox. Traditional commentators, sorry, it was wall, but the Septuagint renders it as ox. Traditional commentators have also been divided on this. David Kimchi writes that the ox could denote someone in a high position, as in Deuteronomy 33:17. In majesty, he's like a firstborn bull, bechol shoro, and could refer to either the ruler Shechem or his son Hamor. Rashi comments that the ox symbolizes Joseph, again referred to as an ox in Deuteronomy 33:17, meaning that they desired to exterminate Joseph.
Yeah, so I do have a note on that. So yeah,
Every
with many,
time bulls are brought in every time bulls are brought up in the entire, well, especially in the Pentateuch, I think about the fact that one of the two primary gods that the God of Israel was made out of is El, the head of the Canaanite pantheon, essentially the Zeus of the Canaanite pantheon, who was represented by bulls. Bulls were his sacred animal, and bulls were at all of his shrines and were used in religious ceremonies for him. So the kind of the significance of royalty / divinity with bulls, but also the criticism of bulls and back and forth between these two, it's not, maybe it's not always the reason, but it always pops into my mind. That's for sure.
Yeah. So bulls in the ancient Near East always symbolize strength, which is why they were used for El and Baal. So yeah, with many critics, the translation here, and I should note his translation, is that they tore down ramparts. With many critics, the translation here reads shur, so a poetic term for wall, instead of shore, ox, as the Masoretic text has it. The verb, if it refers to oxen, would mean to maim or to hamstring. It was sometimes the ancient practice to hamstring the captured war horses of an enemy, but it would have been foolish to hamstring captured oxen, which could be put to peaceful use. Moreover, since Jacob is speaking of the massacre at Shechem, the narrative there explicitly noted that the cattle and other livestock were carried off, not maimed. So the translation wall is probably better.
So I have a question about this. Sometime they decided that that cattle and horses needed to be hamstrung because that's how much they hated their enemy.
Well, horses at least.
Just horses.
And why could horses not be taken?
So well, they were in multiple parts. I think David ended up taking some horses, but what's interesting is I actually made a video on the heavenly horsemen. So like I talk about the motif of just horsemen in general in the Bible and how their divine counterparts are used as well. And it was, I mean, I'm not going to go into the whole argument now. It's like a 30-minute video. But I do go into how the Israelites viewed that kind of stuff over time and how it changed.
It's unnecessarily cruel, though, to hamstring horses, especially when they can be used for your own armies. You know, you read.
Well, unnecessary cruelty seems to be the theme of the entire Old Testament.
Well, it is. It is. But you look at it's.
Well,
it's,
the entire Bible, really.
Oh, absolutely. But it reminds me of like every time we get one of those Christians who, you know, has listened to some William Lane Craig and never thought a thing about deeper than it sounds good, so he must be right, who tell us that, you know, their religion is the basis for our morality. You look at like The Art of War, Sun Tzu, ancient China. He says to never hamstring horses. Obviously, you take those and you use them for yourself. Plunder the enemy, absolutely. Use their resources. He advocates being kind to captured soldiers because they're more willing to give in if they know they're not going to be tortured. You know, every lower soldier holding a spear knows he's not going to be tortured to death if he does. Whereas if you know, corner them and give them desperation to fight with, you've made your enemy stronger. So both reason and compassion are found in the totally godless philosophy of Sun Tzu.
Yeah, as the oldest person on the panel, I want to tell you that when I was a little kid, I remember people bragging that America had this policy that we would not torture prisoners for that very reason. Oh, then somebody changed that.
Yep. Well, no, you just can't torture them on your own soil.
Yeah, you got to send him to Gitmo. Okay, so who's reading now?
No, I haven't finished. I'm sorry. Finally, I have for verse 7. I will scatter them in Jacob. So Moshe Weinfeld writes, this is an anachronism that is put in the mouth of Jacob and reflects a period in which the names Jacob and Israel denoted nicknames to the people of Israel who settled in their land, compared to 34:7. It is known from Joshua 19:1 that the portion of the tribe of Simeon was absorbed into the portion of the Judean tribe, and that parts of this tribe immigrated to the north, according to 2 Chronicles 16:9 and 34:6. Simeon is not mentioned in the blessing of Moses, Deuteronomy 34. The tribe of Levi was scattered the tribe of Levi was scattered in the rest of the tribes, Judges 17:7 and 19:1. It did not have his own share of land, but only 48 cities inside the tribes of Israel, Joshua 21.
Okay, here, like, Levi, the tribe of Levi we've heard of before because it's the priestly tribe. So they didn't get any land, but they were dispersed and they still had
God's
power.
portion. Yeah, they get God's portion. Although we'll get to that soon in the Moses text, because it's very important to know that even though they descend from Moses and Aaron, were part of the tribe of Levi, they did not get the priesthood because of family favoritism. They got it through good old-fashioned genocide.
Yeah. And also Simeon and Levi, I think the cruelty they're referring to is when Dinah over Dinah, and then they asked them to be all circumcised and they slaughtered them while they were recovering.
That's an extra level of cruelty. Let me not enter their council or join in their assembly it sort of makes me feel like he's saying, don't let me be complicit in their crimes. So, but
yeah, I think the punishment is both for using their anger in Shem, but also, I think, can't remember if it says explicitly, but they're being the most vocal against Joseph.
Just to make sure, Tomer, are you finished?
Yes.
Okay.
At least for this part.
Got a comment from Jason, new member, says, does the bull symbology have any connection to something like the bull in the Epic of Gilgamesh? And this question is for Lorence, but I still have to jump in. Symbology. I think the word you're looking for is symbolism. Sorry.
Well, I mean, in either case, yeah, it does. It would have that kind of connection, because in the ancient Near East, at that time, you would have had it wouldn't have been like modern bulls. It would have been oryx, right? So so they were much bigger and stronger than modern bulls, and of course they would use them as symbols of strength.
And their horns were ridiculous.
Yeah, they look kind of
Yeah,
like
what?
horns.
Yeah, I can't remember why Joseph is likened to an ox, but that is kind of the imagery that Joseph is an ox.
I think he is symbolized as an ox. I've already mentioned
is,
this.
yeah.
Symbol of power, kingship, and also oxen feature in several of the dreams he interprets. So,
Yeah, Deuteronomy 33:17. He's referred
Oh,
to as
there's
an
a
ox.
cow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think I remember, like, as a kid, that they were like each of the tribes had a flag, and Joseph's.
Yeah,
had
I
an
remember
ox
as well that each tribe has its own symbol, and I think Joseph's
Yeah.
symbol was an ox.
which is very anachronistic, because flags and that sort of thing just didn't exist back then, as far as I know.
fun with flags.
What's the word?
All right, so,
Vexillologist?
Vexillologist.
Sounds right.
Oh, that sounds right.
Something like that. Yeah.
Big Bang Theory flashbacks. Anyway.
Yeah, I was quoting the Boondock Saints.
I knew I recognized like fun with flags. Like, where have I heard that before?
Sorry.
And I was trying to think, like, was it like from some cringy creationist, or where was it? And then you said Big Bang Theory, and you're like, oh, that's right.
No, I mean, Sheldon is almost as cringy as a creationist.
Yeah.
Almost.
So somebody posts that symbology is a word. Symbology is the internal logic of a story's symbolism, though I'm sure you're right, they meant symbolism. I was quoting Boondock Saints.
I also like to be a smartass via quotation. Sometimes
Yeah.
I'm quoting you.
So, who's reading?
Who
I
wants
don't
to
know.
read?
Who's reading?
Lalandra.
Okay. So, Judah.
3 brothers.
Here we go. Judah, the favorite of Isaac. I know. Who am I
Kind of,
thinking?
yes.
Jacob. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
verse 8.
Okay. Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Thy
You are in the
father's-
King James, aren't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
because it's fun.
It is fun. It's very
It is.
dramatic.
Yeah,
It is.
dramatic.
Well, forsooth proceedeth.
Okay. And it came to pass. Thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. Judah is a lion's whelp from the prey. My son, thou art gone up. He stooped down. He couched as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come. And unto him shall the gathering of the people be. Binding his foal onto the vine, and his ass's colt onto the choice vine, he washed his garments in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes. His eyes shall be red with wine, and his teeth white with milk. Okay, so yeah, whatever that means. Well, did he like to drink? I don't know. And now on to Zebulun. Zebulun.
Yes.
I got
Zebulun?
questions. He's washing his clothes in wine and also in the blood of the grapes.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Okay.
You think
Let's just finish the 2 brothers.
it's
Okay.
repetitive? Shh. When was the Bible ever repetitive?
Yeah.
That and the whole thing about washing your clothes in wine, but your teeth are white because you drink milk.
It's better than Christians washing their clothes in blood.
The blood of the grape, though.
Yeah, I'd rather the blood of the grape than the blood of the lamb.
Frederick
you
Agerbo
wash
comments
in the
says,
blood.
I love it when Lalandra reads. She is one of the few people who can read from a KJV and make it sound good.
Well, that degree in English and Shakespeare has to come in handy somehow.
Damn, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Literature.
Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be for an haven of ships, and his border shall be unto Zidon. Issachar is a strong ass, couching down between two burdens. And he saw that the rest was good, and that the land it was pleasant, and bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant unto tribute. We're stopping in Issachar?
Yeah.
Okay.
So first I have for verse 10, the ruler's staff from beneath his feet. As you mentioned, KJV translates, nor a lawgiver from between his feet. And the word in question is mechokek. Targum Onkelos renders this word as lawgiver, while the Vulgate and Septuagint translate to leader or ruler. The staff interpretation possibly comes from Numbers 21:18, in which the word is used to denote staff or mace.
Yeah, so it's definitely supposed to be a parallel to the the scepter, in the previous part of the verse. But yeah, mace is the translation taken here.
And
I think
and-
Rashi says students, though, which is from the Talmud. Students of the
ask,
law.
when do we think this particular chapter of Genesis was written? Do we have any ideas? Because it seems to me this would be a very interesting way to look at what the tribes were doing and what they were thought of and how they were perceived at the time this particular fragment was originally written.
Yeah, I mean, like I noted, there's a lot of argument about this section, specifically because it seems so old, but at the same time, it's taking from traditions that we know are later. So there is argument about how this section was constructed. Maybe some parts are older than others. Maybe it's just a conglomerate of different poems that were written. So it's very unclear. I mean, I can take a flip through some of these books and see what they say, but yeah, there is debate about this section because it is a very standout section.
It is interesting. I mean, obviously, particularly in the beginning, there's a lot of reference to what happened previously, but it is one of the few that pulls out all of the different tribes and, gives an account of them. And it's one of the things about fiction that I find most interesting is that the fiction of a people will not tell you their history, but it will tell you at a specific time what they valued, what they feared, what they hoped for, how they viewed things, which I think can often tell us more than history can. Certainly from a point of view of common humanity.
I mean, when was the Deuteronomist writing? Would that have been
That would have
after
been
the 6th? Wait, was that the 6th
that
century?
was during the rule of Josiah.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that would be after the destruction of the Northern Kingdom, or
Well, it kind of depends because you have well, yeah, it would have been afterwards, right? Because
so it kind of makes
were
sense of
destroyed
someone
with the
to.
Assyrians.
So it kind of makes someone
the
to talk about
Assyrians.
building
the
up
Assyrian.
Judah.
Sorry, there was a lot of
So
wars going on.
Yeah, so I'm saying it kind of makes sense to have someone who's writing about Judah being mighty and blah blah
Oh,
blah, and
yeah,
and also
absolutely.
writing it in such a way that it fits in with the story.
With the documentary hypothesis, this is assumed to be a Yahwist author, someone from the southern kingdom of Judah. But again, that's really, and that is highly probable. But that again, there's various eras of literature there too. You're like, was this Deuteronomist? Was it previous or other than the Deuteronomist author, or all these things? Because like I've made the point again and again, there is no original.
So it could be like a Yahwist source, but someone else would have maybe come in and like tidied it up to make it flow with other stories.
There are notes from the redactors because I believe it's the opinion that Ezra and Nehemiah sort of took what was left and maybe their own writings possibly as well, and then sort of put together the Pentateuch as one thing and presented it as, okay, this is our, because it was the rule in Persia, you know, you could go back and become a vassal state, but you have to have a written code, a law that, you know, you have to be organized to be a vassal state and have a written law. And most of the Pentateuch is law. You know, Genesis is the mythology that leads into the justification for the Exodus, which gets us to 3 books of law.
Fun.
Yeah, that makes
Before
Got
we
another
leave
comment?
verse 10, oh, go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
No, you please.
Before we leave verse 10, it says that the scepter will not depart from Judah until Shiloh. Is that a place
I'll
name?
get to
Is that
that.
a person?
sense. Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
I'll
cool.
get to that, but I think Aaron wanted to
Okay.
comment on
comment.
something, or
Yeah. So M. Doug offers 10 pounds and says, what do the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Bible have in common? They both have a bull about heaven. Real quick, reading Minute Rice says, a bit off topic, but Aaron, do you think you can pressure Jimmy into arranging a Skep Talk episode with you, Forrest Valkai, and Erica Gutsick Gibbon as hosts? The problem with that is it would be an absolute nerd fest. And the other problem
12
with
hours
that,
at least.
How is that a problem?
the other problem with that is that they're both so good at what we all do that they might be better than me, and I just might be intimidated by that.
No.
Aaron, you forget how much you intimidate other people.
Oh, stop. Okay, then Trevor and Wright, but they really are. They're just really good at what they do. So I admire both of them for that. Trevor and Wright says, are there any alternative sources when referring to Israelite history apart from the Bible? Is it possible the history of ancient Israel differs from the biblical narrative to a degree? Is it
think
possible?
Yeah, a lot.
It is
a
certain.
lot, yeah.
It is guaranteed.
So it's important to remember that the Bible is a source, whether we like it or not. It is a source. I mean, historians will take whatever from the
So
ancient
is
world.
Ovid.
Yeah, exactly. Like it is though. It is. What it shows you is their use of storytelling over time. It shows you how people felt about certain things. It can definitely tell you a lot. It could have a lot of references to things going on in the world that it's being written in, so we can place a date better. And it is useful. And but you can't take it at face value. That's the important
It's not
thing.
history. Yeah.
Yeah, and it also depends on which part you're reading, because the
Yeah,
Deuteronomistic
fair
history
enough.
is history, but it's not the same history as how we think in modern terms of history. Like, it's not like this huge study of sources and then reconstruction of events. Like, that's not what it is. This is one. This is probably multiple people writing their understanding of things that happened to them in things that happened to their people in a certain amount of time. So it is a history. It's written in the same way that Herodotus's history is written. It's written in the same way that Thucydides writes. So it contains gods actively doing things. Like, both in Herodotus and in Thucydides, God is said to be actively taking part in things, because that's just how history used to be written. So
It was how it was understood at the time.
yeah, exactly. So but it's not, the same type of history that we have in, like, this modern secular academic context. It's not that. So in terms of alternative sources, this is where the use of extra biblical sources is great. We can have Persian, Babylonian sources, Assyrian sources, Egyptian sources, and then we have evidence from archaeology a lot of the time, specific. Yeah, I guess that would include like pottery and stuff like that. So taken all together, we can construct an actual model of what happened, because there are certainly things within the Bible that are true, like the aqueduct that was built, that was actually found. Like, we have like we found the fucking aqueduct that God,
There
who-
were 3 gates
Hezekiah? Yeah,
attributed to
Oh,
Solomon that were found.
It's
it's more of
Shiloh,
it's more of a tunnel, no?
Well,
yeah.
but
the Shiloh tunnel. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Mhm.
the thing is, we found that.
Yes.
And the Babylonian exile happened, like
The
undoubtedly. It happened.
Sennacherib expedition.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that is true, but we have to remember that we're looking at it through one lens, and that would be this religious lens, this religious ethnic lens.
And as far as the Pentateuch series, that's not history at all, but there is a lot of interesting sources. And I always recommend the Nova documentary, The Bible's Buried Secrets, as a fun place to start because it's a documentary, so it's 2 hours. And then if you want to get into more reading and things from there, you can, but it gives kind of a cool outline of some of the things that have been discovered about the actual origins of Israel. And then, there's obviously way more to it, but you can decide how much you want to delve in.
Just to
Also,
clarify a little
converted
bit,
Dan
I hear
Barker.
all the time that if I can't say the word, if archaeologists find any artifact or any trace of a city that was mentioned in the Bible or anything that seems to be possibly concordant with some Bible tale, then that proves the whole of the Bible.
Sure, Jan.
So, Lawrence,
My ass. So
It's like saying that
I
just
drank
because
wine
Troy-
last night. Dionysus is real.
or like saying that just because Troy existed, the whole of the Iliad or the Odyssey existed. I don't know.
Right.
that's my favorite example.
Yeah,
They
that's a really
found
good one.
fucking Troy. That doesn't prove Hellenism.
Well, the thing is, they think they found Troy, right? Historic, but like, you're still right though. It doesn't prove Hellenism at all. Even though we did find what we think is Troy. But yeah, it's
But
it's a terrible way of.
I have
conducting
another
history.
favorite example that I quite like. They found the bridge of Vishnu. In Hinduism, there was they wanted to wage war against a demon who was running Sri Lanka. Was it Sri Lanka? No, what? Yeah, I think it's Sri Lanka. And so Vishnu called upon Hanuman, the monkey god or the monkey king. And so he got an army of his monkeys to go out and grab rocks and bring out rows of rocks, and they built a bridge all the way to Sri Lanka
Damn.
so that they could cross over this narrow bridge, and the army could get over to Sri Lanka and wage war. Well, now, visible from orbit is a formation. Now you can tell that it's a geological formation from the way that that Sri Lanka pulled away from the Indian subcontinent, right? So there's like a residual trace when you pull something apart. You know how it strings together a little bit. Well, that's what's happening with Sri Lanka. But this has been adopted by Christians and by Muslims, more particularly by Muslims, and they call it Adam's Bridge now. And they don't have the mythology to justify why there would be a bridge there. They just appropriated it so that it's no longer the bridge that was built by Hanuman and his monkeys. It was somehow built by Adam in a myth that doesn't appear anywhere.
Yeah, that honestly, the version of the story of Eden that I've never been able to find where he got it from, but Colonel Ingersoll used to share, which was obviously Hindu based, where the divine Brahman puts the couple on the island of Ceylon. And afterwards, when they come off the island because they're not allowed to leave it, and then he says he condemns them, and the land bridge falls behind, leaving only a few rocks. That at least would come up with Adam's Bridge. There would be some connection there to that story. But of course, that's not the Bible version. So of course it couldn't be the real one, because we can't be wrong. So we can't be wrong. So we can't be wrong.
In science, you find this formation, which is consistent with plate tectonics.
Mhm.
And that's all we can say. We don't say that it proves plate tectonics. But when religion, you find anything that's concordant at all, you're going to say that proves the thing. So now
I think it proves the monkey god.
So
praise Hanuman.
Finding this consistent with tectonic, geologic formation somehow proves Islam if you call it Adam's Bridge, and it proves Hinduism if you call it Hanuman's Bridge.
Yeah, sure. Okay, fine.
I'm guessing this is the same. This is the same story, right? I mean,
Well, no, it's
Yeah.
different stories.
Well,
I mean, it's the same formation.
Sri Lanka and Ceylon is the same island.
oh
Yes.
yes. It's and until I
Is it
can,
Cayman?
if I can ever get a hold of Ingersoll's library, I'll know where he got that from. Because obviously
Ceylon,
scholarship has changed a bit in 200 years.
yeah, my geography may be failing me, but isn't Ceylon Mediterranean?
No.
No, this
No.
is an Indian Ceylon.
I think Sri Lanka
are you
is the
thinking of
country and
Cyprus?
Ceylon is the island.
Oh, is that what that
Yeah.
what my problem was? Okay, gotcha. Thank
Yeah,
you.
in Mediterranean you've got Cyprus and Crete that you might be thinking of.
Yeah, that's probably what I was thinking. Yeah. So then, Happy Goat offers $19.99. It says, "Just wanted to let you know you're missing a few episodes from the Blasphemers Bible and Joseph Smith playlist." Fine.
Is someone making you adult, Aaron?
Yeah. That's okay. I accept correction and move on. Mighty Chicken. By the way, my student got an A on his paper. This is directed to Lawrence. By the way, my student got an A on his paper. Super happy about that.
Very
Yeah.
good, very good. He was talking about it in the Discord, which Aaron should join.
Ah.
We have a
Should I?
Discord?
Because I got another invitation to go to Discord, and the guy's pressuring me. Please, I'll make sure everything. Because I was on Discord once, and it was like being on a playground full of drunken children.
Yeah, so I mean that is kind of some of Discord,
Depends on the server.
but yeah, it depends on the server. So like every community or whatever can have their own Discord server with only those specific people in it that are actually in it, right? It's kind of like rooms essentially, and you can go from like server to server or room to room and talk with different communities. So like Isaac.
I'm
and
trying to
Selma-
reason with people rationally using logic, and they're flinging feces.
Here's the thing: you
Yes.
don't have to like debate about things all the time. So like the like my server is I think everyone in it is an atheist. There might be some Christians in there. I don't know, because we do have some.
Well, that's
Christian
not what I'm
followers,
saying.
but-
I'm saying there was no rationality. They're telling me that they're going to have a rational argument, but they're literally just flinging. Well, not literally. They were figuratively flinging poo and venom.
Yeah,
What was
yeah.
the name of the server? Did it happen to be called?
How would I know the name of the
Just-
server? For all I know, there's just Discord. That's the server.
Okay,
I
yeah,
don't know anything about it.
Yeah,
So
it is quite
Discord. If you think about it, Discord is like Facebook, and the server is like a Facebook group. So if you go on a Facebook group called Religion and Philosophy, or the Discord server called Religion and Philosophy, or I think that's what it's called. Yeah, the people on there are going to be terrible. But if you go on Milwaukee Atheist Discord server, the discussions are more about like maths.
Like,
Yeah,
excuse
sorry about
me-
that.
Excuse me if I think that, okay, if I knew, and I didn't know, but if I knew that I was on a server that was called Religion and Philosophy, the fact that it has the word philosophy in there means that, yeah, I'm going to have an argument, but there's going to be some kind of reason behind it. There wasn't in this case. There was,
Yeah,
People who link religion to philosophy rarely do either well.
gotcha.
I mean, the name isn't as relevant. It's that you could have a really good name, but the community happens to be skewed to a specific demographic. So I'm thinking if it's the same server I'm thinking about, which I watched. I think
I've
Amy
noticed the
Newman
same
is
thing
in
with
the
craft
comments.
beer. If it has a really good name, it's not necessarily a good beer. But but really great beers have shitty names.
Mm.
I had a really good beer once at a festival kind of thing that was called the Backhand of God. And it's from a small microbrewery. It was very rich
How did
and
you not-
chocolatey.
I got a pony keg of that, and had it shipped from Central Canada to Vancouver when they moved the location for the Imagine No Religion conference. And I've got a photo of me and Dawkins having a glass
Oh
of
my
Backhand.
God! I
I-
had that like one of the first years. It was there this because it's actually not so much Central Canada. It's like the Okanagan, but in the south, closer to the. I think.
It's not on the ends, therefore it's the middle.
It's just Canada. Okay, that's all Canada.
That's like saying
Okay.
part of California is central.
Right. I am currently drinking Clown Shoes. That's the brewery. and the name on the can is "Once Upon a Time in the East."
The
Now,
Wild Wild West,
is
anybody?
that a good name? No. Is it a good beer? Yes.
You know,
I can't
speaking
believe that you had a pint of the Backhand of God with Richard Dawkins.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry
Speaking
if I'm being.
of Arn's selection choice, how he chooses things by when they were back during the blockbuster days, he would always like get this movie with like women in bikinis with guns or motorcycles. This must be a good movie. Let's watch this movie. And then it turns out to be a really bad movie.
Yeah,
Who would have thought?
My dad and I picked a movie on the same basis. We were like, we just want to watch stuff blow up. We just want to watch an action flick. So we picked a movie with lots of explosions on the cover and the hero walking away from explosions because they always do that. And it turned out to be this like weird soldier film, which there was some violence at the beginning, but it wasn't cool violence. And there was some violence at the end that was cool violence, but most of it was just the hero standing around bleakly and not saying anything while people humaned around him and he didn't understand them humaning. It was awful.
Yeah, see, I grew up in the '70s, and I remember movies like "I Spit on Your Grave." Just...
I'm sorry if I'm being rude, but we have lingered for 10 minutes.
You're right.
Oh well, excuse me. Okay, well, let me get through the rest of these comments then. Matt Dalton offers $5 and says, "When I started watching this program, I thought you all said KGB, and I was like, what the USSR has to do with this?"
Me too. I always hear KGB, but he's saying KGV, like in King James version.
Yeah.
KJV,
and,
yeah.
And then Wander,
the KGB, the King James bullshit.
I like that better.
Wander, new member, says, when I was a kid, they used to say to us in church that they found carriages in the Dead Sea, and that was proof of Moses and all that story. And we believed it. I think you meant the Red Sea.
Honestly, that con has come up for generations. There's always a Christian con man willing to do that con.
It's so ridiculous.
I think it's always the same Christian con man.
Oh, no. Ingersoll 200 years ago, a different guy was pulling the same con. It was just harder to check him back then because we didn't have satellite mapping and we couldn't Google Maps, and zoom in and be like, no, there isn't.
And then the Raven 200 offers $4.99. It says, and the bridge proves the Raven 200ism if you call it that bridge where Raven biffed it face first trying to longboard.
Sure, why not?
I'm going to move to the next comment. Native Atheist, $20. I want Aaron's horns. Haha.
I want Aaron's horns too.
Well, I'm married.
Really good.
First Lawrence, now you, Lilith.
They're Hemi horns.
I'm sorry you have to endure us all fawning over your husband, Lilandra. I promise I just want to stick them on my headphones.
I just have to like deal with deflating his ego later. I just kidding.
I have faith in you.
Well, you can dip the horns, but just the tip.
Okay.
The Mighty Chicken, or Mighty Chicken rather, says, hey, Aaron, try Yule Smith from AleSmith. However, buy a bottle and age it for a year. It's quite good. Yeah, we should talk beer on a different show. But yeah. And then Lawrence, I don't know. I'm sorry. That's a back chat thing. Never mind. That was from Peter. Lawrence, read the back chat.
So, Alejandro asked about Shiloh. In the NIV, it reads, until he to whom it belongs. And KJV translates, until Shiloh come. And the Hebrew Bible literally reads, until he comes to Shiloh. The meaning here is unclear, and many interpretations were given to Shiloh. The Aramaic translations translated as, until the Messiah will come, for his is the kingship. And the Septuagint translates, until the things stored up for him come. Rashi denotes Shiloh as Shiloh, meaning a present unto him. And Rashbam comments that this denotes the temple of Shiloh, the place where the Ark of the Covenant was at before the Philistines took it, according to Jeremiah 7:12.
So is this? I know this is meant to be prophetic, so a lot of people might read into it. It's talking about till Jesus comes, the Messiah. But
Okay.
I know, but a lot of Jews don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah. But
No.
right.
No, but I mean,
it can be
Christian-
messianic.
the
It can be
Christian
talking about the
this is
Messiah, but
also part of the cultural narrative, albeit a frustrating one, but an important element to include.
And verse 12 here, I only have my commentary for the dark eyes are darker than wine. The phrase could also be read as his eyes are dark from wine, again to denote the abundance of wine. And Moshe Weinfeld writes, the phrase dark eyes does not necessarily have a negative meaning. Rather, it is a sort of comparison to the dark, undiluted wine or the black wine that is known from later Talmudic sources as wine that was prepared in Judah, like in Bereshit Rabbah 98:10 and the Talmud Shabbat 62b and 63a.
Which Jacob would have had no knowledge of.
Well, you
Like,
know, he's a prophet, or it
yeah.
was written later, one or the other. But yeah,
And-
it's just all wishes for
Yeah.
prosperity. You know, they talk about Israel as a land flowing with milk and honey. Obviously not, you know, like that's not literally coming out of the rocks. It's a metaphor of prosperity and plenty.
Yeah, and also the teeth are whiter than milk are meant to indicate the abundance of milk in the land. Like Rashi says, because of abundance of milk, for there will be in his land good pasture for herds of flock.
goats.
Now 13, Zebulun will live by the seashore. So Moshe Weinfeld writes, this phrase describes the tribe of Zebulun's proximity to the valley of Acre that borders the valley of Yiftachel in Joshua 19:14. The coastline where the valley of Acre is belongs to the tribe of Asher, Judges 5:17, whilst the tribe of Zebulun resides at the foothills of the lower Galilee. If you can show the picture, Peter.
Yeah, I was gonna
If
say
I can
the-
show the picture. Oh, okay.
Here.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you see that Zebulun is right at the top there. Is where Acre is located.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I
Uh,
mean, this map shows it being inland, but it did.
Yeah, I think I
so.
said that it was the coastline where the valley of Acre is belonged to the tribe of Asher. And the tribe of Zebulun resided at the foothills of the lower Galilee, which is right there.
Yeah,
center
and
of
also
the-
on this map, right at the top is the city of Sidon.
Yeah, this will be yeah.
Land of
Right, and
Zebulun
then-
and land of Naphtali, away beyond the sea toward Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles, the people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. And from those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned.
I don't know
Where's
the
that
reference,
from?
but
It's one of those prophecies that either was in the Old Testament or in a book of the Old Testament that we don't have anymore that was used for Jesus.
Okay, and so 14, a raw-boned donkey. So several commentators like Rashbam and Bechor Shor understood it to mean that Issachar's tribe will work the land. And Rashi comments that he bears the yoke of the Torah, i.e. obligations, like a strong ass upon which may be placed a heavy load. Targum Onkelos translates, Issachar is rich in property. Peter, you can you can bring the back.
It seems like they got the job of being laborers.
Yeah, they did.
I think there is a tradition though that they were more they're likened to donkeys for carrying a burden, but I think they were supposed to be it's supposed to be an allegory for them being students of I don't know what the word is, like studying a lot and being supported by the seafarers and stuff like that.
I would have thought the opposite, that they did a
it's-
lot of manual labor.
Yeah, I don't know where that tradition comes from, but
Hmm.
I mean, like I've got like this translation here, which is like it intertwines the commentaries into the actual text in brackets and stuff, and it literally says like, yeah, he will be like a donkey with strong bones because he bears the yoke of Torah, like a donkey that journeys day and night, resting temporarily between city borders, the Torah scholar cannot rest day or night from Torah study. So this definitely comes from some commentary somewhere. It might even be Talmud.
Rashi, maybe.
Yeah, and probably Rashi. Yeah. Okay. It's from Bereshit Rabbah. So
Yeah.
Genesis Rabbah.
Okay. Shall we move on?
Please.
Okay.
Who-
Who do you want me to continue?
Yes.
Okay. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path that biteth the horse's heels, so that his rider shall fall forward. I have waited for thy salvation, O Lord. Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. Out of Asher his bread shall be fat, and he shall yield royal dainties.
Okay. So verse 17, Moshe Weinfeld writes, Dan appears here as someone who harasses his enemies that pass through roads by riding. This description possibly displays the situation of the settlement period in which the tribe of Dan sat in the Shephelah and at the entrance of northern Mount Judah. Its dwelling in the area, which was an important crossroad to the cities of the mountain and the Shephelah, allowed it to control the caravan roads, and there's evidence for that in the Amarna letters. In letter
So they raided
2,
caravans?
I haven't finished. In letter 287, the king of Jerusalem, Abdi-Sheba, tells that his caravans that went to the king of Egypt were robbed in Ayalon. In letter 273, the two sons of the governor of Gezer were almost killed by the Apir in Ayalon and Tzor'ah that were in the territory of Dan, according to Joshua 19, verses 42 and 41 and 42. Due to Amorite pressure, the people of Dan were forced to immigrate, according to Judges 1:34-35, and an important part of this tribe settled in the north, Judges 18.
They sound like the bandits I kill in Skyrim.
That's a neat comparison. If you can bring the map again.
They would have been next to the Philistines.
Yeah, they south of the Philistines. If you can bring
Samson was from the tribe of Dan as well.
Was he?
Was he? I
Cool.
can't remember.
Until
Peter has the map again.
Well, he was definitely famous for fighting with the Philistines.
Yeah. And now, yes, please, just to show. So you can see that Dan is located in the area that is called Shephelah, which is around the area of Tel Aviv. And you can see that it is southern to it is the Philistines. And smudge between Ephraim and Benjamin.
Samson was from the tribe of Dan. I just saw that on Wikipedia. Yeah, so it could be talking about him or his tribe as well.
Yeah. So now for Aaron, this is a viper along the path. So in Hebrew, it's shvifon, which is a hapax. The word is probably like the Akkadian shipu, which means a type of mythical snake. According to Rashi, it is called shvifon because it hisses, noshef, when biting. The Septuagint and Vulgate translate the word as kerastes, a type of horned viper. And in modern Hebrew, shvifon is the name of the genus Pseudokerastes.
Are you joining the tribe of Dan there, Aaron?
I was thinking about it. Although I would say that Alter translates this as just asp.
Yeah, help me out real quick here. I don't mean to sidetrack, but help me out, Tomer. What is Tsefa?
Tsefa is I think it's a type of viper. I think it is it's a snake that is its origin is in Israel. I don't know the exact genealogy of it, but it's a viper. I think the scientific name is the scientific name is Vipera.
Okay.
Okay. Does anyone else find verse 18 weird? Just blurting out, "I look for your deliverance, O Lord," in the middle of giving your sort of last words to all your kids.
Yeah, it's weird. And yeah, actually, this allegorical translation is like, but when Samson will be overcome by his enemies, he will say, "I hope for your salvation, O Lord." Still, like, why is it?
I have
random.
I have a commentary here by Rashi. He writes, he prophesies that the Philistines will put out his eyes, i.e. Samson's eyes, and that he would have to say in Judges 16:28, "Remember me, I pray thee, and strengthen me, I pray thee, only this once," etc.
I would just like to say Samson is berserker class.
Yeah, I remember.
He doesn't seem very religious in the story either, which I like.
My only commentary for verse 19 is that this is kind of a play on words. In Hebrew, it's read Gad Gedud Yegudenu Vehu Yagud Akev. There is the word God is repeated in several places. Gedud Yagudenu Yagud. So
yeah. So that is the only thing that's noted here because it's there's a lot of sound play there.
Yes. And verse 20, the tribe of Asher resides in the Galilee, which is known for its olive plantations. Deuteronomy 34:24 also states, "May he dip his foot in oil." And Rashman comments that the delicacies fit for a king are taxes in the form of oil, which the kings used as skin lotion.
Well, oils are an important part of, well, any economy, really. I
or else it gets the hose again.
Oh,
I'm going to read another comment. Minute Rice offers $4.20. I see what you did there. When are you going to do a spicy food and beer show? I wouldn't arrange that. I would participate if invited, but that's not the kind of thing I would set up. I'd be happy to participate in that, though.
We've done that before, where we were visiting some other YouTubers and we put some spice on pizza.
I don't know how you have the snake on your horns, but I love it.
I remember the interview that Aaron did when he was in Milwaukee with my friend Joe, and you guys were drinking beers, like local beers.
I don't.
Sounds fun.
You don't remember? Okay, it's on video. No, that's fine. That's fine. There's plenty of stuff.
Yeah, I was on a completely empty stomach when your guy took me to like 4 breweries before putting me on camera.
Oh my
okay,
God,
fair enough.
Hold up. Joe, I think, okay, so Joe told me this story, and I wonder if you remember this. So I think you guys were at the Reason Rally, and there was like some kid who was like handing stuff out because like her mom told her to or something. And then this is the account from Joe. He said that like when she went up to you, you were like so adamant about like destroying everything she believed in that moment. Like you were like, "There is no God, honey," like something like that. I don't remember the phrasing.
That sounds so unlike me.
Does it though? So I was wondering if you remembered that because he remembered it vividly, and he told me about it the other day.
I remember this guy picks me up from the airport. I had not eaten a thing, and I was determined not to eat a thing the whole day. I mean, he took me to 4 breweries, and he wanted to give me your best stouts so that everything was at least double-digit ABV. And so we have like 2 beers in each place, and then he puts me on camera. And I remember that. I remember being on camera and being lit.
Yeah,
I was as close as you get to spiritual for me.
And I remember when we went to the Mongolian Grill the first time, it was way better when we went drunk the first time than when we went the second time, and we weren't as drunk.
everything's better when you're drunk.
Yeah,
Everything tastes better.
Well, it's noon somewhere.
So anyway, we want to get through this
Do I
today.
have a snake hanging off my horns?
You do, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how you got him to go up there, but it's awesome.
Okay.
You look like the Dark Lord. It's fantastic.
Why, thank you. That was a goal when I was a little kid. I want to grow up to look, when I'm old, I want to look like the Dark Lord. Okay, so and I got a couple more comments to read. We just jumped into that, and we'll get back into reading. So Kicker White Lion offers 20 Czech kroner. Says this money is for your snake. Buy it something nice. Well, thank you. I know exactly the thing. He wants a tub that he can bathe in. He's a desert snake, but I've seen that he likes water, so I'm giving him a little tub. Thank you for that.
That's adorable.
And Wander, new member, says for Tomer, why Rashi's commentary are so important? I can't wait for this explanation. It is to understand the Is it to understand the translation better, or what? I never heard of him until this show, so I'm very curious. Thanks.
Well, Rashi is probably the most important Jewish commentator of the Bible. He's like the most quoted, the most influential. He's not not only he commented on the Bible, he commented on the Talmud as well. And so he is very, very influential. He also brings midrashic interpretations to the stories, and sometimes his commentary is sometimes concise and trying to get to the simpler meanings of the verses, but just because he is the most quoted and the most influential commentators.
So
Yeah, I think
scriptural students or scholars would revere him as much as someone like myself would revere like David Attenborough.
Ooh.
You could say that, yes.
It's like,
So
yeah, I
even
mean,
when you
like,
disagree with
can't
him, it's
learn
important to know what he
without it.
said, kind of for greater
Yeah.
context in the narrative and argument.
Yeah. Sometimes his own students will disagree with him, like Rashbam, who was his grandson. Who else? I think Bechol Shor
Yeah,
was.
Rashbam was also a very important Jewish commentator as well.
Yeah, many important Jewish comments. I try to bring the most of the important ones.
Yeah. One
Yes,
of the
and
big
I do
things that Rashi
appreciate
did-
that. We rib you a bit, Tomer, sometimes, but it is in good fun. I do respect you and appreciate your participation.
Yeah.
Just if I have to make that explicitly clear sometimes when we rib you a little bit. So-
Thank you very much.
But
uh,
just to kind of go to the other side of the question, like sometimes Rashi's commentary is a bit of a stretch.
Mm.
Like,
Yes.
where did he get
yes.
this information? And it's sometimes it's fantastical.
They go with oral
it
tradition.
sometimes-
That's how they
oral
cope.
tradition. Sometimes I quote from midrashic works like Tanchuma, Bereshit Rabbah. Later on, we'll get to. There's a lot of rabbahs. Exodus Rabbah will be the same. Talmud. So yeah, from
But wasn't there one where he said that the Jews' bodies, if they weren't buried in Israel in the last days, they would
that's a
travel
Talmudic.
underground?
That I think that is a Talmudic.
yeah, he
tradition.
will bring down stuff from the Talmud and from the Midrashim,
Yes.
and also things that are from the translators into Aramaic, the Targums.
Yes.
And the idea is that Rashi is like, it's like if a child wants to learn the Bible, then he would use Rashi to explain what's the most basic understanding of the text is. It's not, philosophical or anything like that. It's as trying to be as down to earth and basic as possible. And one of the things that he did that was quite important is that he would translate things into more modern language as well.
Mm.
Yes.
So he was writing at a time when Old French was the language of the land. And so a lot of times he would translate things into Old French, which can be really helpful nowadays because
You were
we
saying
know
he
what
was
Old French means.
a medieval era
Yeah,
scholar?
he was. Most commentators are
800s?
from the medieval period.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless you're
10
when Tomer cites like the Talmud or something or the Midrash,
I think
the Midrashim, it's older.
Yeah, 11th century, I think.
BC.
Rashi?
BCE.
Okay.
Well, no, no, there's no shot. So for the
80.
Talmud, depending on which one you read. Like they could go to about the 4th or 5th centuries CE.
CE.
Yeah, I think it's around there. And the Midrash, I mean, they were written, over many centuries, but they're around that same period.
Yeah, and then Rashi. Did you say Rashi wrote in the 11th century or the 1100s?
11th century, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think he lived in Provence, or whatever, like
Provence,
like
yeah.
modern, like South France.
Yeah.
Quite close to Spain.
Yeah.
I had to screenshot this snake crawling through my horns like this.
Absolutely.
It's so good.
It sounds like he also recorded a lot of sort of the superstitions and old wives' tales that would travel around in the community, possibly the oral tradition for centuries.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like the throwing the salt over your left shoulder to keep away the devil if you spill salt, that kind of thing.
Although not to sound too much like Tomer, but we should continue reading.
Yeah.
Well, I got a couple more comments. I'm not finished. Let me.
Was that an impersonation? Yeah. Good job. And now I will know that I sound like this. Good.
Okay, so Shadow Freddy Fosbear, what a great name, says, sorry, Aaron, for asking this question that isn't related to the topic, but I wonder what you would do if David C. Pack comes back and tries to refute your videos on you debunking his show. I would eat him gloriously.
Oh, God. Little quick sideline. When I first deconverted, I still felt sort of guilty. And I was like, I feel like I've been spending so much time looking into the case against Christianity. I should look more into the case for, which is ridiculous in the time. But I was trying to be fair-minded. And so I was like, where's something I haven't heard before? So I go on YouTube and I'm like, the case for Christianity, not that phrase, because that would bring up that awful, terrible book. But reasons Christianity is true. And I came across the David C. Pack video. And it took me like 5 minutes to realize he was completely full of shit and 10 minutes to turn it off, because he kept talking about how irrefutable his evidence was. It's undeniable, irrefutable, undeniable. He went on like this. And I'm like, it is 10 minutes in and you haven't brought a single fact to bear yet. If you had a single useful thing to say, you would have stopped talking it up and gone to the point at 5 minutes in maximum. And then I never watched David C. Pack again until I watched him via Aaron's wonderful dismemberment of him. And that's still...
You might be surprised to learn, but he turned out to be a really bad guy.
When I want to have a good laugh at the expense of a creationist.
Yeah, he turned out to be evil.
No way.
Yeah, I know, surprising, right? It turns out he's a cult leader. And he makes sure that all of his followers buy houses that are closely adjacent to his church, and then he owns the house. They pay for it, but he owns it.
So it's like Kent Hovind with his weird little cult.
It's worse because he owns an entire neighborhood that other people pay for.
So like Kent Hovind was trying to be before he went to jail for tax evasion.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
he also has them do all of his work for him. His everybody in his church has to do work for him, and he insists that they have to do it at twice speed, so they all have to move quickly. And when they do social events, because they have to do social events, it's a church. It's one of the ways you manipulate your masses. He makes sure that the white people are separated from the dark-skinned people, and they can't dance together.
Okay.
Well, I've heard an awful lot from
new
people.
Interpretation of mixed dancing.
I've heard an awful lot from people who were in his cult, praising me for doing that series against him and telling me what they've seen firsthand of his reactions to them. So I feel completely vindicated in that series. He's a bad guy.
What were his reactions, though, to seeing any of your responses?
Well, he doesn't want anybody else to see them, that's for sure.
Oh,
and he knows better than to address them, because I will blow his ass up.
Again.
I love Sweet Treat at 12311 says, shocked, I tell you. Yeah. Okay, so let's continue reading. I'm tired of you guys slowing us down.
Okay, here we go. 21. Naphtali is a hind let loose. He giveth goodly words. A hind is a female deer. Joseph is a fruitful bow, even a fruitful bough by a well, whose branches run over the wall. The archers have sorely grieved him, and shot at him, and hated him. But his bow, see, they put bow and bow together, darn it. But his bow abode in strength. So now we're not talking about a branch; we're talking about like bow and arrow. Yeah. And the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob. From thence is the shepherd, the stone of Israel, even by the God of thy father, who shall help thee, and by the Almighty, who shall bless thee with the blessings of above, blessings of the deep that lieth under, blessings of the breasts and of the womb. Blessing of the breast, he gets all the breasts or something. I don't know. The blessings of thy father have prevailed above the blessings of my progenitors on to the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. They shall be on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him that was separate from his brethren. Benjamin shall raven as a wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, at night he shall divide the spoil. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is that their father spake unto them, and blessed them every one. According to his blessing, he blessed them.
Okay, so verse 22 about Naphtali. No, that was 21. Sorry.
21.
Still,
Yeah.
21, yeah. Moshe Weinfeld writes, several interpretations have been given to this verse. Some interpret a hind who is free and quick, like according to Job 39:5, with branched horns, with the word emel, which is usually translated to fawns, I think, lovely fawns.
I have beautiful
at least
fawns
the JPS.
in the NIV.
Yeah, so with the word emel meaning branch. Shefel in Hebrew, the fawn, Arabic and Akkadian denote horn, and compare it with shofar, which is the horned instrument. Some read it eilah, meaning the pistachio tree, like in the Septuagint, which grows beautiful branches. This is the hind let loose, ayala. Others, like the Syriac translation, translates imerei shafel plainly, pretty things. It could also denote a quick messenger who brings good news, like in Proverbs 22:21. Yet another interpretation, imrei, is a plural construct of imel, a sheep in Aramaic, meaning the pretty offspring of the hind. Out of all the interpretations, the most probable is the sheep interpretation, only that the deer does not bring it, rather the tribe gives sheep as gifts or as tax. The Naphtali tribe, whose land is in the mountains of the Galilee, according to Judges 5:18, is compared with its quickness of bringing tribute to a hind who skips over the hills and mountains, sung in Song of Songs 2, verses 8-9.
It doesn't seem to be a sheep if it's let loose. If you let a sheep loose, they're going to get lost. They're going to get overgrown.
Also, isn't the word like the word hind is as you said, is a female deer?
Deer.
Mhm.
I mean, there's
But
also
the
doe.
I,
But isn't
I
ayala normally a gazelle?
No, but I meant the imerei shafer, which is the lovely fawns, the
Yeah.
email sheep in Aramaic.
Oh, right.
would,
not
sorry.
the
Yeah,
ayala.
that's also translated as like speakers of blessing or something.
I know
Yeah.
that mountain sheep and mountain goats and such will sort of, hop up basically a sheer side of a cliff where there doesn't appear to be much in the way of footholds. So they can be quite agile in that regard. And that could certainly be a comment on
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
I have to say, Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. And that's all they have to say about Benjamin. I'm like, that's kind of harsh
I'll
on the
get to
kid of
that.
the family. Especially because I wasn't Saul the first king from Benjamin?
Yes. But before we get to Benjamin, we get to Joseph. So first in 22, Joseph is a fruitful vine. This is the NIV, but the JPS translates Joseph is a wild ass by a spring. So the word is translated to either a donkey or a vine or a bough is porat. The vine interpretation comes from Isaiah 17:6, and several traditional commentators like Ibn Ezra, Gersonides, and Sforno interpret it in this way. The donkey interpretation probably comes from Genesis 16:12, and porat is the female of pere, the wild donkey. Rashi interpret Ben Porat, fruitful vine, as a graceful son from the Aramaic aprian, which means graceful. If we are to accept the donkey interpretation, then the next phrase, branches climb over a wall, could also be read as wild colts on a hillside, like the JPS translates.
Yeah, I see a chat comment that wasn't selected for the back chat, but I see it. I want to make mention of it. John 73, John says, "The arms of his hands." Yes, not to be confused with the legs of his feet.
It would be stranger if it was the nose of his hands.
Well, his hands
the
don't really
armpits.
have arms, do they?
Well,
Wanna go in
they
reverse.
do, right? Because you could say that like the hand has the arm. You could say that.
Okay.
Weird way to put it, but
And then another comment that was
Bible.
selected is Frederick Agerbo says, Aaron, I know we have and love Lawrence, but when this show gets to the New Testament around 2035, are you then gonna bring in other New Testament scholars like Ehrman? I won't need to, because by then Lawrence will be a prevailing scholar that everyone will refer to.
Yes, he will. Yes, he will.
No, I would love to have Ehrman on this show or on my show. I've reached out to him multiple times, hasn't gotten back to me. Unfortunate, but
I will do what I can to arrange a meeting with the two of you.
that would be awesome because I'd love to have him on, especially since we're in the New Testament right now on my show. Although I would say that I think I'll be far more helpful once we get to the New Testament because I actually know Greek, so I can actually.
So you can tell me what faith really means?
Ah!
We're
there are a few ways to
almost out
translate
of
it, but-
Genesis, and then Jacob is almost dead. It's taken 3
Yeah,
chapters.
yeah.
died
This is
already,
like the
The
fourth
third time.
Yeah.
third time, fourth time. How many times has he died? It's like an anime.
Ah,
They're just
this is the
cutting
last
back
time,
to
I
the same
swear.
scene. Is he finally
The
dead?
anime
He
bit
dead
where they're
yet?
like,
Right, but yeah,
and then they
Okay.
have a filler
Well,
episode
they
for
said
no
that
reason.
about Jason too.
And it's Friday the 13th. Which one now? 13, 14,
20 something.
20 something? He's not dead
Okay.
yet.
Verse 26. So Moshe Weinfeld writes, the usual interpretation is that the blessings of Jacob have prevailed the blessings of his fathers. However, there are several difficulties with this interpretation. One, the name for parents, Horim, is not known in the Bible. Horah, which appears in Hosea 2:7 and Song of Songs 3:4, is an active participle from the root hey resh hey with the meaning of pregnancy. 2. In the blessing of Moses, Deuteronomy 33:15, there's the parallel ancient mountains, Harirei, hills immemorial, which could suggest that in our verse there's the same parallel. 3. The Septuagint translates in blessings over stable mountains and in blessings over everlasting dunes, with the parallel that was mentioned before. The Septuagint also had blessings instead of bounty slash outmost bounty. Bounty slash outmost bound, which makes this part of the text difficult to understand, and so the Septuagint fits with the next assumption. 4. If we accept the reading of blessings of everlasting hills, we find that in the blessing of Joseph, the root Beit Resh Chaf, with bless, repeats 7 times, a typological number.
I wanted to talk about the blessings of the breasts in verse 25.
Yeah.
Well, if I would have talked, and then I will get to talked about this, then my commentary will be 6 pages. I try to keep it concise.
Oh, okay.
I just find it interesting that both translations that I'm using, which come from a religious Jewish background, are translated as the blessings of the father and the mother.
Yeah, Targum Onkelos. Rashi also
yeah.
says
I have
it,
breast and
i.e.,
boob.
i.e., may the men and the women be blessed in that they may not prove sterile and barren.
Okay.
So this is about
Blessings with
fertility one
breasts.
way or another,
Yes.
not just
So
about how
Rashi
much
does
men like
say
breasts.
Rashi does say, how does Shaddayim, which I think is breasts, yeah,
breast,
how does that
yes.
mean father? And he says that it's I think it's something about shooting.
What?
He shall be cast down, Yora Yora, is translated by Targum as Ishtada Ishtadei. Okay, so the Aramaic word, so if you think of the word Shaddayim as actually being Aramaic, then it kind of is similar to the Hebrew word, which means like shoot. So Shaddayim means father because his semen shoots like an arrow.
Yeah, the seed
Okay.
shoots out like an arrow.
And children
I
are arrows in the hand of a righteous man, yada, yada, yada. The analogy is a long-standing one in the Bible of children being arrows from their parents' quiver.
Yeah. May
also
your
have-
aim
So
be
if we're
true.
talking about Naphtali, who's an archer or whatever, then
Okay.
then yeah.
And also, I'll comment from Ibn Ezra. He says, Jacob likened the breast to heaven and the womb to the earth. Its meaning being that Joseph will be blessed with many children. And so you have
My
this-
breasts are indeed heavenly. Now, can I please read the death of Jacob? Please, he's finally going to die.
Wait,
He's gonna
I
die.
have in verse 27. Finally, my last
Yeah,
commentary.
you mentioned Saul, yeah.
Yeah, traditional commentators have interpreted the verse as a prophecy. The three most common interpretations are: one, prophecy about the Levite's concubine, two, prophecy about Saul, who was of this tribe, and three, prophecy about Benjamin's inheritance, in which the temple will be built. That's it.
Okay.
There's also about Esther and Mordecai dividing the spoils of Haman.
Oh, that'll be a
Really?
fun one to get to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rashi again
Yeah, I'm
says.
saying. Is it Rashi?
Yeah, Rashi. Yeah, Mordecai and Esther,
yeah.
who will be of the tribe of Benjamin, will divide the spoil of Haman, as it is said in Midrash Tanchuma Vayechi 14. Behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman.
Yeah.
I didn't
Also
know they
for
were Benjamin.
yeah, for the tribe of Benjamin in general, especially in Judges, we're gonna see how warlike they are. So.
Yeah,
And I guess
warlike is one way.
And then
to
you
put it.
actually get to the war part where everyone pretty much gangs up against Benjamin, but that's going to be later.
I guess a general rule of thumb is if something is prophesizing something that happens later on in the book, this means that this part was actually written after the other bit. Yeah.
Okay.
If this is prophesizing about Saul, then it probably was written after Saul.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would be weird to be prophecy about Saul.
It would be weird, but I mean, this could be taken as an interpretation of many things, which is why it's very difficult to tell when it was written, because it could be prophesying dozens of things. It's like there will be wars and rumors of wars. You know, unlike that time there was world peace.
Although I would say wars and rumors of wars, I go into that in my Heavenly Horseman video because I talk about the four horsemen, and it's probably meant more like it's probably a difference between war between nations and war as in the sense of civil war, but I make a full argument for it in that video.
Point stands, but yeah.
I have another comment to read. Shadow Freddy Fazbear says, to continue from my question, Aaron, which creationists would you want to absolutely destroy and make them speechless besides Kent Hovind? Also, I love that you like my username. Who I would absolutely I can't answer that question. It's somebody that doesn't normally deal in the creationist arguments or any member of the Discovery Institute.
So
there are a
William
handful
Lane
of politicians. There are a handful of politicians I would love to get into on this, but yeah, they don't do these arguments. They don't do education in this area, and either that Stephen Meyer was boasting somewhere that he had a debate with me that never happened.
Wow.
Well, you can tear down Stephen Meyer, and I know William Lane Craig has edged into some evolutionary misinformation sideways. So
I contacted Stephen Meyer on your behalf, Arn. He hasn't replied yet. I referred to that message where he announced a debate with you. He hasn't replied yet. Meanwhile,
that I didn't know
if-
about, by the way.
Yes. Meanwhile, if you do want to talk about Stephen Meyer, Jackson Wheat is currently doing a show on a video that has Stephen Meyer in it, where they're trying to debunk evolution with mathematics. Math.
Yeah,
Oh
and
Oh,
Jackson
God,
Reed
is
one of
this
them.
that high school practice problem population growth bit that what's his name?
This is
Yeah,
this
Jackson
is a,
Weed
in
is
the
another
12th
science communicator that I strongly admire.
I would. I would be a bit of a nerd here and say that I've actually read a paper about the topology of evolutionary biology, which is the math
Cool.
it related to the mathematics of biology. So
Okay.
yeah.
Very cool.
Well, I'll remember to tap you when I get to something relevant to that.
Is that like how all animals are mugs or something?
Oh God.
They have one
Will
whole
I
not-
hate
inside them.
mathematics
will
arguments.
not
but
get to get.
There's like that idiot Berlinski, for example, who's on the Discovery Institute, and he likes to use the argument from improbability fallacy, which is if you take all of the factors that were involved in what happened yesterday, if you take all of the events that happened yesterday at the exact time that all of those things happened, and in the exact sequence that all of those things happened, and analyze enough factors in it, you can make yesterday statistically impossible.
he's in the
My
video
presence
that we're
here is so
reviewing on Jackson's channel.
statistically improbable that it's technically impossible that anyone could ever provide literary commentary on the internet.
Just to say, not all mathematicians are like that.
No,
Hashtag
by
not
the
all
way, if anyone
mathematicians.
runs into the bad math population growth model argument for creationism, it appears to have originated, as far as I can tell, from Karl Baugh, a known fraudster on a level even Kent
Oh, you
Hovind
mean
can't-
Dr. Karl Baugh?
No.
The one who gave himself a PhD from a university that he also invented and then hid, because when they asked him where he got his PhD, he told them it was this university, and then they said, "Well, but we can't find this university; it doesn't appear to exist." And he says, "Oh, it's in Australia. It's an Australian university. Oh, okay. Well, you know what?
He
They come
has
back and they say we
multiple
can't find
degrees.
it there either."
He has multiple degrees from universities that don't exist, offshoots of universities that exist, but the offshoot doesn't exist, and several other
Or
things.
they're not credited to give the degree he claims.
He's the one who did the piranha thing, and it turned out to be Pacu. Oh, look, they grew so big, while Pacu grew bigger. Genius. But anyway, he got in a high school math teacher creationist to do a simple calculation population growth formula to say that, you know, if the human race began more than 6,000 years ago, we should have Googles and Googles more people than could stand on the face of the earth, and therefore evolution can't be true.
You mean billions of years, not 6,000.
No.
My favorite Karl Baugh video is where he had the title "Symphonies of Creationism," and then he stood in front of the sign, and they had to crop the shot, and it said "Phonies of Creationism." Priceless.
I think I've seen that episode.
Accidental truth.
Let's finish this chapter.
All right,
come on.
Go. Jacob's gonna die.
You know, honestly, we could probably run right to the end from the death of Jacob to the death of Joseph, because that's actually a narrative.
Well, I have commentary on this, but I don't know how much you will want it to last.
Let's plot on through. Let's do it.
Before I do that, I just wanted to make a comment on our debating politicians. You know, Sarah Huckabee Sanders is somehow the governor.
God, I love that.
The governor of Arkansas now, and you'll never get to the bar. She's going to run against Trump, maybe, and you never get to the bottom of it. All they have is projection. They're like, no, you're not. But what am I? You know, it's like she actually said this. Every day we are told that we must partake in their rituals, salute their flags, and worship their false idols. All while big government colludes with big tech to strip away the most American thing is your freedom of speech. They want us to salute their flags and do their rituals. Put in God we trust on our money, and they
Yeah.
just project.
I
And
don't
they're-
think atheists instituted the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, verse 29.
Yes.
And he charged them, and he said unto them, I am to be gathered unto my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah. That I know I slaughtered it, which is before Mamre, in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with my phone can't decide whether it wants to ring or not.
All right,
Okay.
let me
No.
read this
I'm
as Merlin from 1981's Excalibur.
Okay, go ahead.
Then he gave them these instructions. I am about to be gathered in my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave of the field of Ephron the Hittite, the cave in the field of Machpelah, near Mamre in Canaan, which Abraham bought along with the field as a burial place from Ephron the Hittite. There Abraham and his wife Sarah were buried, where Isaac and his wife Rebekah were buried, and where I buried Leah. The field and the cave in it were bought from the Hittites. Then Jacob finished giving instructions to his sons, and he drew his feet into the bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people.
Is he finally dead?
Yes, it's finally dead.
Are you sure?
There
Good.
actually is a tradition that he never died.
Of course.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a
He's a
story from the
vampire.
Talmud where some
They
rabbis
didn't
are
dare
sitting around and one of them
start.
teaches a lesson about how you shouldn't talk while eating because the food might go down the wrong pipe. And then when they finished eating and no one was talking, when he finished eating, he said, and Reb Jonathan said, Jacob our father never died. That's the
Yes,
lesson.
even Rashi also says, but the word death
Yeah.
is not mentioned in his case. And
Oh. He's
Well,
gonna
well,
die.
breathed
there
his
is the
last.
idea that
What the hell
he's
do you
alive
think
because
it
his
is?
Oh
children are.
my God.
But yeah.
Jacob is the wandering Jew.
Well,
Go
it's
harder,
Oh.
Ross.
one of the options, yes.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Wander, new member, makes a comment, says, Aaron, I admire the patience you have with idiots like Jesse Lee Peterson. I saw Owen's video about it, and I was amazed at how dumb that guy is, laughing out loud.
That man
Yeah.
is so dumb. He made Ray Comfort feel as uncomfortable about his stupidity as Ray Comfort makes every intelligent or sane person feel about his stupidity. Like that's
Let me emulate that a little. But have you ever seen an ape turn into a human being?
Hmm.
That's how I remember it. That question like 50, 60 times.
What was that guy's name?
Jesse Lee Peterson.
Jesse Lee Peterson, yeah. Yeah, that became viral, that video.
Yeah,
of
I
you
didn't know
responding
anything
to him.
about that guy. I needed to see Owen's video about it. And
He's actually
somehow
an
a clip
incredibly
of that
terrible sexist.
horrible interview got on Reddit and was apparently like one of the top posts on Reddit for a
Yeah.
couple of days and had said, tens of thousands of upvotes.
Yeah.
It was
I
a
read
very
lot of
frustrating
comments. They
conversation
were
because I'm
very
talking
good.
to somebody who doesn't know anything, doesn't understand anything. And it's difficult to have a discussion with
You
with
can't.
someone like
there's
that.
there's no dialogue possible. He's so much exponentially dumber and creepier than Ray Comfort that Ray Comfort felt like talking to him like any of us would feel talking to Ray Comfort,
Yeah, he's a lot more disturbed. He has a lot more disturbing opinions.
especially about women.
I had no idea that you
Yep,
could be a
and,
black
and
white
about
supremacist.
slavery
I didn't know
and
that
stuff
was
like that as
possible.
well.
Yeah,
And that he was so incredibly misogynistic at the same time. And I had no
And
idea
he's
where he
also
was going
racist.
with all of the disturbing things that he kept saying. He
Too.
kept asking me, "Well, which is worse, your wife or your mother?" I'm like, "What the fuck kind of question is that?"
Yeah.
Arn,
Yeah,
I don't want to
nothing
worry
about that
you, but
surprises me.
did you know that he went on air saying that women can't give oral sex, only men can do that to other men?
I'm sorry. What did you just say?
Yep.
want to make sure I
Give?
heard this right.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Give
What?
or
women
get?
women cannot give oral sex to men. Only men know how to give oral sex to men. And it's funny because last
Apparently,
year,
Jesse Lee
I think it was
Peterson
last year, a documentary came out. Several people from his ministry accusing him of having had gay sex with him. He had forced them to have gay sex with him. So
Oh.
This is
May-
my
maybe-
surprise
that I
face.
heard that too, and
Yeah.
and that
I
all of
think
this
he would have
somehow
to be bisexual to have that opinion.
and all of
whether
this
women
somehow
can
stems
do it
from
or
his
not.
being so incredibly misogynistic. The man absolutely hates women,
Yes.
just
Hates
period,
all women.
across the
Yeah.
board.
Because I
Yes,
mean, how would you know if women could not do it or do it unless you've had that with a woman? To
You'd have to
compare. Yeah, you have to compare.
Yeah. I think he seems to be being used by like white supremacist Christian supremacists
Well,
and
yeah.
as like they don't like him or think that he's making good arguments. They just think it's funny and
He's dumber than a
Yeah.
bag of rocks. Of course they're going to use him.
Yeah, he was a little disorienting.
I just have a question. Are we going to extend this program a bit for chapter 50?
I think
Or-
we should.
You know what? I'd like to.
Yeah, I think we should.
yeah.
I'd like to. It's
Yeah.
not that
Okay.
long. I'll just go into it. If-
my
unless somebody else-
commentary is a page and a half. So
All right. Does anybody else want to read, or am I going to do it?
Can you
Power
do it
through.
quickly?
I can read pretty quickly.
Okay.
Quickly.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay.
Chapter 50. Yeah.
Try to
and
do it with some
Joseph fell.
gravitas. This is the Bible, damn you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Dude,
final
Joseph
chapter of
fell.
Genesis.
Is it?
Final
a
chapter.
bit gravitas.
Ooh,
Yeah.
wait.
And Joseph fell on his father's face, and he wept over him and kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father, and the physicians embalmed Israel. And 40 days were completed for him, so are the days of embalming completed, and the Egyptians wept over him for 70 days. When the days of his weeping had passed, Joseph spoke to Pharaoh's household, saying, If now I have found favor in your eyes, speak now in Pharaoh's ears, saying, My father adjured me, saying, Behold, I am going to die in my grave, which I dug for myself in the land of Canaan. There you shall bury me. So now please let me go up and bury my father and return. And Pharaoh said, Go up and bury your father as he adjured you. Adjured? I guess requested from you.
Made you swear.
So Joseph went up to bury. Oh, okay, that makes more sense. So Joseph went up to bury his father, and all Pharaoh's servants, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Egypt went up with him. And Joseph's entire household, and his brothers, and his father's household, only their young children and their flocks and cattle did they leave in the land of Goshen. And 8 chariots and horsemen also went up with him, and their camp was very numerous. And they came to the threshing floor of the thorn bushes, which is on the other side of the Jordan. And there they conducted a very great and impressive eulogy, and he made for his father a mourning of 7 days. I'll continue.
So I do want
The
to point out
Canaanites.
that it's interesting that he's having his that he's having his dad embalmed, which was, we all know, Egyptian practice. He's being prepared for mummification.
Yes.
The servants that he would have had would have been Egyptian ones who would have been professionals at mummifying. Now, so it does seem kind of strange that he'd have him embalmed and given the same funerary rites as an Egyptian. But the word that's used there for physicians, right? Apparently, it's a little bit different than your regular embalmers, because the word itself means healer.
Yes.
Now, they would go to the same school, but then I guess they would get their training would split off eventually, where you would have oh, man, sorry. Don't know what's wrong with me today.
Smoking's bad for you.
It is, but that's okay. I'll die happy. So they would get like medical knowledge about, how to keep people alive, and then the embalmers and the people who would mummify would give training in that specifically, but it was essentially still ancient medical school is what they would go to. So their use of the word physician there is trying to take out the necessarily religious context of the actual mummification process,
I
because
was
it
about
is
to
intrinsically
say,
religious.
wasn't it normally done by the priests in the temple with religious rites? And
Yeah.
wasn't
I
he
have
the son-in-law of a priest? His wife was the daughter of a priest.
Well, I have a commentary
Joseph.
on this as well. First of all, Egypt was famous with its physician. Egypt was famous for its physicians. Homer in the Odyssey, Book 4, line 230 reads, "The earth of Egypt bears greatest store of drugs, many that are healing when mixed, and many that are baneful. There every man is a physician, wise above humankind." And the embalmment of the body was a special ritual for Egypt. Herodotus, in History's Book 2, Chapter 86, writes, "They first draw out part of the brain through the nostrils with an iron hook and inject certain drugs into the rest. Then, making a cut near the flank with a sharp knife of Ethiopian stone, they take out all of the intestines and clean the belly, rinsing it with palm wine and bruised spices. They conceal the body for 70 days, embalmed in saltpetre. And when the 70 days have passed, they wash the body and wrap the whole of it in bandages of fine linen cloth, anointed with gum, which the Egyptians mostly use instead of glue. Then
Yeah.
they given the dead man back to his friends. These make a hollow wooden figure like a man, in which they enclose the corpse, shut it up, and keep it safe in a coffin chamber placed erect against a wall.
Yeah, so the thing about using a hook, that's not quite what happened. So Bob Breyer, an Egyptologist, he has noted that that would be kind of a misrepresentation. Essentially, they would shove something in your nose and like pound your brain into goo, and then your brain would leak out of your nose. So they
Wasn't
wouldn't like pull it out slowly piece by piece. They would
Isn't
just
it?
turn it into like this into this mush that could they would like pound it, I guess, and
Fascinating.
They had like a long spoon, no?
something like
Was
that.
it?
Yeah.
Is anybody else getting flashbacks to the mummy, the original mummy, where she's like, "Do you know how they got your brain? They took a red hot poker, jammed it up your nose, swizzled it around, and yanked your brain out."
Close, much closer, yeah. But
Ah!
no, like that's kind of like an old idea about like the hook.
Hmm.
And
The commenter, Mr. Crane, says, "Is any of this kosher?"
Brain is kosher, at least.
Okay.
Cattle. There is.
That
I think
process
Moroccan.
is not, though. You
but
wouldn't do any of that to a Jewish corpse.
yeah,
I
but
think
I think Moroccan Jews have goat brain or something like that. As
Oh, you mean to eat? Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, I thought they just meant like, is that okay for like in the Jewish burial?
Okay, so
I think the
well, not
apologetic
anymore.
is yeah. I think the apologetic is that when it says embalming here, it doesn't mean they went through the entire Egyptian process. They just embalmed him with spices,
Dried him
Oh.
to, like
out.
keep the body fresh and buried in a tomb as opposed to like in the ground,
Not stinky.
waiting until he be taken up.
Yeah.
And now
Or
for
is that
verse
just his body? Yeah.
and now verse 5, the tomb that I dug for myself. So Rashi comments here. The Hebrew phrase means, according to its plain sense, the grave which I have digged. Sorry, the grave which I have digged, just as Exodus 21:33, if a man shall dig, yichreh. There is a midrashic explanation in Sotah 13a, which fits in with the meaning of the word kariti. That is, asher kariti means asher kaniti, which I have bought. For Rabbi Akiba said, when I went to the coast towns and I heard them use for what we term mechira, trading, the term kira, Rosh Hashanah 26a. Another midrashic explanation takes kariti to be connected with kari, a piled up heap of grain. For Jacob had taken all the silver and gold which he had brought from the house of Laban and made a pile of it and said to Esau, take this for your share in the cave. Midrash Tanchuma Vayechi 6. The mechiri is, I think, karitili. I dug for myself. This is the translation.
Okay, so literally it would be I dug it myself, but you can kind of also read it as I bought it for myself, or I piled up the money to buy it for myself.
I suppose
Yes.
he prepared it like if he placed Leah in that tomb, intending to preparing a place for himself, even if it was just he put a slab there for him to be laid on eventually or whatever.
Mhm.
It's clearly
And
more like a crypt.
and the threshing floor of Atad in verse 10, it's in Hebrew, it's Goren HaAtad. And Rashi comments, it was so called because it was surrounded by a hedge of Atadin, thorns, not because thorns were threshed there. Our rabbis explained that it was so called in consequence of an incident that occurred there, that all the kings of Canaan and the princes of Ishmael came to wage war against them, but as soon as they saw Joseph's crown hanging over Jacob's coffin, they all rose and hung their crowns on it, and thus wreathed it with crowns like a threshing floor that is surrounded with a hedge of thorns. Sotah 13a.
Oh.
Oh, that's
Okay, so
one
it's supposed to be
way
that at a later point in time, they came to wage war, but then they stopped when they saw the crown, and then they added their crowns.
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
Okay, that's
I'm
it.
sure
from
that's a
my-
totally real thing that absolutely happened. But they had a great mourning, and obviously ritual mourning and weeping was a thing in many cultures at many times. So
Yeah. And
least-
religion doesn't like anything that is pleasurable. So damn bacon.
damn bacon. But at least you get to
Yeah.
cry.
Hmm.
Okay, shall I continue?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land, saw the mourning at the threshing floor of the thorn bushes, and they said, "This is an intense mourning for the Egyptians." Therefore, they named it Abel Mitzrayim, which means Egypt mourns, which is on the other side of the Jordan. So I'm guessing that's referring to at the time when this was written, there was a place on the other side of the Jordan called Abel Mitzrayim, and they're saying this is the source of its name.
This is how the
12.
leopard
And
got
his
its
sons
spots.
did to him just as he had commanded them, and his sons carried him to the land of Canaan, and they buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah, which field Abraham had bought for burial property from Ephron the Hittite before Mamre. And Joseph returned to Egypt, he and his brothers, and all had gone up with him to bury his father after he had buried his father. Now Joseph's brothers saw that their father had died, and they said, "Perhaps Joseph will hate us and return to us all the evil that we did to him." So they commanded messengers to go to Joseph to say, "Your father commanded us before his death, saying, so shall you say to Joseph, please forgive us. Please forgive now your brothers' transgression and their sins, for they did evil to you. Now please forgive the transgression of the servants of the God of your father." Joseph wept when they spoke to him. His brothers also went and fell before him, and they said, "Behold, we are your slaves." But Joseph said to them, "Don't be afraid, for am I instead of God? Indeed, you intended evil against me, but God designed it for good, in order to bring about what is at present, to keep a great populace alive. So now do not fear, I will sustain you and your small children." And he comforted them and spoke to their hearts. So Joseph dwelt in Egypt, he and his father's household, and Joseph lived 110 years.
Wait, he's alive
Joseph saw
again?
children of a...
That's Joseph, not
Oh,
Jacob.
now we're talking about
Okay,
Joseph,
sorry.
the son. Yeah, he dies very soon after. Joseph saw children of a third generation born to Ephraim. Also the sons of Machir, the son of Manasseh, were born on Joseph's knees.
Hopefully placed on afterbirth. Yeah.
I mean, knees do make a pretty good birth stool for some people.
I will say that
Have you seen-
Targum Onkelos translates, he brought them up upon his knees.
Yeah, I know. I'm joking.
At birth. Yeah. I have
Yeah.
were placed at birth on Joseph's knees.
And the
Which
last
is a lovely
three-
image. So he lived very long and saw
Yeah,
his children
there's-
and grandchildren. and
There's something very
great-grandchildren.
important about the number of 110 here. So
Mhm.
yeah, like in biblical literature, we see it all the time where people live very long lifespans. But here, this reference is very important because it reflects Egyptian tradition. So this reference to 110 years appears in Egyptian texts such as the narrative of Papyrus Westcar, which goes back to the 12th dynasty. In this narrative, King Cheops learns of the existence of a magician named Jedi, who is 110 years old and who, quote, still eats 500 pieces of bread, half an ox, and drinks 100 jugs of beer. One of the most
Damn.
well-known Egyptian texts is the Instruction of Tahotep, which states, "The time I spent on earth is no small thing. I had 110 years of life, which the king gave to me." Such references occur not only in literature, but also in inscriptions on statues or stela. One such example is the block statue CG 604 found at Saqqara, which is right next to Giza. The inscription found on the back of the statue is a hymn addressed to multiple deities, asking them to allow K to rest in his tomb after reaching the age of 110 years. And then there are a whole bunch of other important figures that were said to have lived that long.
So 110 is an important number to Egyptians, not necessarily to the Jews.
Yep.
Interesting.
No, it's not a typological number. 110
to you guys. Yeah, no, that's interesting because everything else is 40s and 7s and 3s, and
but
Aaron has
110,
another snake cuddling him.
It's good for Egyptians.
Which gets you to 120. Sorry.
Let me just finish the last 3 verses, and then we can go back and do all of the commentary. So, last 3 verses, Joseph said to his brothers, "I am going to die. God will surely remember you and take you up out of this land to the land that he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob." And Joseph adjured the children of Israel, saying, "God will surely remember you, and you shall take up my bones out of here." And Joseph died at the age of 110 years, and they embalmed him, and he was placed in the coffin in Egypt.
And he had the decency to actually die. A man of his word.
Oh, just to die once. He didn't even take 4 episodes to die.
It's very quick.
It's not the Peter Jackson version. That one's longer.
Yeah. Well, wait, no, we're not doing the extended version of Joseph's death. We already had to do it.
So, Tomer or Isaac, please confirm this. So the term that is used for the coffin is Aaron?
Aaron, yes.
All right, there you go. Aaron's a coffin.
I already said to Aaron that his name is Aaron Ra in Hebrew. It's bad closet.
That's what?
That's
bad closet.
Hell.
He is a bad closet.
Yeah, Aaron, take that.
Okay.
I like bad coffin better. That's goth as hell.
Yeah, bad coffin could also be good.
There you go. Well, you know what this means? We made it all the way through Genesis. Genesis is over. It's over.
Now we get, and now we get to laws.
Ooh.
No, we
And
got a
then-
little bit of
We got a little bit of a story and then some laws.
just a few nice
Yeah,
bits
I'm
of
very much
genocide
looking
here.
forward to walking through Exodus with Lilith and Tomer and Lawrence. This is going to be a bucket of chuckles.
Yeah,
I'm
Oh,
so
we'll
going to
make it
enjoy this,
fun.
and I expect to learn something.
cool.
Well, I know I learned something. It's great having Tomer's commentary and Lawrence's scholarship and Isaac's perspective from like Jews in other places. I learned lots of stuff. It's fun.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yep. All right. Anybody want to make any final comments? We'll close it up.
Goodbye, Genesis.
I think you have some comments left to read, Aaron.
Oh, do I? Okay.
Yes.
Hold on a second. I was on the wrong screen. There we go. All right. So, Minute Rice says, "How much would you need your audience to donate in order to spend an entire episode reading as Ozzy?" God, I'm so tempted to put a number on that.
666.
$666.
Because on my show, which everyone should go watch, by the way, we don't do it so much anymore, but we used to do this thing where we would have goals. So every time we hit $666, we would do something kind of crazy. So the first one that we did was a demon summoning, which lo and behold didn't work because demons aren't fucking real. So we went through like the whole preparation, like we had like the sigils everywhere, and like we had the incense burning and the black mirror. Like it was a proper demon summoning, and we did it for like an hour and nothing happened.
When you could have just bought me a plane ticket.
I could have.
Yeah. If you do it on this show, then Aaron will put his horns on.
And then the other ones, we wanted to try alchemy, but then we realized that if we wanted to actually try alchemy, we would need a lot better personal protective gear because you could die inhaling some of that stuff. And then we were gonna do one on. We actually we bought an e-meter, so we have an e-meter.
Nice.
So we also wanted to try that out, and we haven't gotten to that, but we do have it. We do have the actual e-meter that Scientologists used to use. They got like a new version or something, but yeah.
What's inside? Just a circuit board and a flashing light.
I mean, I don't know. The thing is an actual, like, physiologically speaking, like it does track something, right? But it doesn't tell you a person's what's it called, thetan level, right? Or whatever it is. So it's very basic. Like it's just these like metal cylinders, and you just hold on to them, right? And then they can track like the electrical currents or something. Not entirely sure, but like we got like the manual
So if
for it
you
and everything.
sweat or your heart rate increases, that means there are tiny spirits all over you sucking out your life force.
You got it.
The logic is irrefutable.
Yeah.
The weird thing about alchemy is they were trying to turn lead into gold, and lead has a very close atomic number to gold. Lead is 82 and gold is 79, but you can't change the number of protons in an element. So
no.
Yeah. So we were gonna go with
They
like
also-
some magical method, right? Just to be
Yeah.
more fun. But
They probably
yeah.
also weren't dealing with like elemental
Wait, you-
gold and elemental lead. They were
never
dealing
mind.
with chunks of it.
true. But it's interesting that they chose something so close to gold. They couldn't have known.
I think they,
Well, they were
I
both
think
heavy.
the alchemy started as changing any element,
And
and then
soft.
the lead to gold was just you could make money
Well,
out
everybody
of this.
wants gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have a comment from Larry Fishman for $6.66. It says, the origin of the prohibition. Yeah, the origin of the prohibition against eating pigs. A strategy. I guess that meant to be
Is,
Yeah.
yeah.
is the origin of the prohibition against eating pigs a strategy to avoid infection by the pork tapeworm? I rather doubt that. I think there's some other reason.
I think it's because to distinct themselves from the Gentiles. Because
Yeah.
There were
Also-
certain Semitic groups who used pigs as a toilet, because pigs will eat anything, including your excrement. And I
Wow.
mean, it was a really useful way to get rid of and not have, sewage systems and whatnot. But
Yeah, but at least
Yeah,
the
that-
pigs were
Been-
pigs.
well, when I
The
when I
pigs were
get
as
to
happy
that-
as a pig in shit.
When I get to
Maybe
that,
there is the
I'll-
idea that like city dwellers would have thought of pigs as quite a good thing, and people living not in cities might have just see them as kind of disgusting or whatever. But anyway,
Well,
I mean,
we'll get to
there
that.
wasn't really a
We'll-
prohibition against eating pigs specifically. Like it's not like, in Judaism, like there's the laws of kosher and stuff, and the Bible talks about animals you can eat and don't eat. And pigs are only mentioned because they're the only animal that have one side and don't have the other.
Well,
The only
I
animal
think
that
we'll-
have the hoofs and don't chew cud.
I think
Um,
we'll talk about it when we get to that.
Yeah.
All right.
there's
And
lots
then the
of stuff
final
to say on
comment
that.
from McCrennan says, lots of fun. Thanks, Lilith, Tomer, Isaac, Lawrence, Lalandra, Aaron, crew, mods, and shatters. Such fun and good combos. Thanks. And
Yay! And no more
Thank you.
Genesis.
No more Genesis. We're finally done Genesis at last.
It only took us
end of
months.
Genesis.
It only
Yes.
took us
A year almost.
Really?
Let's all say goodbye
Yes.
to biogenesis.
Bye, Genesis.